Episode 5: East Coast versus West Coast when rap became war. The mid-90s were a time of transformation in hip-hop, but also of tension. What began as lyrical rivalry soon spiraled into a war zone split by geography, egos, and an industry eager for conflict. This is the story of when rap became war. This is the East Coast versus West Coast saga. Welcome to Untold Bars, Episode 5, When Rap Became War. Scene 1: Roots of the Divide. The East Coast gave birth to hip-hop. New York was its cradle. But in the early 90s, the West was rising fast. With artists like Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg, the West was creating its own gritty, sun-drenched flavor of reality rap. But it wasn't just about music anymore. It was about respect, power, and ownership of the culture. The tension was brewing, quietly at first, but soon it exploded. Scene 2: Media and labels fan the flames. It wasn't just the artists. Media outlets like Vibe and The Source played their part. Headlines like East Coast versus West Coast were great for sales, but deadly in real life. Record labels joined in too. Death Row on the West, Bad Boy on the East. Two empires, two kings, Suge Knight and Puff Daddy, ready to protect their own. And in the middle of it all, Tupac and Biggie. Once friends, now representatives of rival coasts. Scene 3: The 1994 Quad Studio shooting. On November 30th, 1994, the war turned personal. Tupac was shot 5 times in the lobby of Quad Studios in New York. He survived, but the damage was done. Pac felt betrayed. Biggie, who claimed he had no part in the shooting, was stunned. The very next year, Biggie released Who Shot Ya?, a track many thought was aimed at Tupac, even though Biggie denied it. Pac wasn't buying it. Scene 4: Tupac fires back. Tupac came back loud, angry, and ready. That song didn't just diss Biggie, it was war music, vicious, raw, unfiltered. The East-West beef was no longer a rumor, it was real, on the streets, in the studios, and in every rap fan's headphones. Scene 5: Fans and culture take sides. Lines were drawn, fans took sides. You were either repping Brooklyn in the East or Compton in the West. Concerts got canceled. Artists traveled with heavy security. Even collaboration became a risk. Hip-hop was bleeding, creatively and culturally. Scene 6: The role of violence and ego. The music was only one part. Ego played another, and so did real street affiliations. Tupac had aligned with Death Row, with Suge Knight's muscle behind him. Biggie had Bad Boy, and Puff, smooth, sharp, calculated. But this wasn't just about music beef anymore. It was about survival. And the fear was real. Scene 7: Behind the cameras, what we didn't see. Behind the diss tracks, the award shows, and the flashing cameras, there were men. Young, gifted, often scared, and surrounded by yes-men and paranoia. Calls were made, warnings were given. Some tried to squash the beef, but it was already a runaway train. What if someone had stepped in? What if they had just talked, like they once did, before the fame? Scene 8: Building toward tragedy. As 1996 rolled on, the energy in the air turned electric and deadly. Pac was out on bail, still angry, still making enemies. Biggie stayed in New York, releasing tracks and remaining silent, mostly. But tension was thick. The air buzzed with danger. Suge Knight and Puff Daddy both had much at stake. It wasn't just about diss tracks anymore. You could feel something was about to happen. Scene 9: Reflection. Was it inevitable? As fans, we cheered for the beef. We bought the records. We picked sides. But what did it really cost? Two of hip-hop's greatest, caught in a storm far bigger than either of them. Was it pride, business, or something else entirely?
This war, fueled by media, music, and machismo, was on a deadly path. And that path was nearing its end. By the end of 1996, the rap world was at a breaking point. Tupac would head to Vegas and never return. Biggie's final days were quietly counting down. Next time on Untold Bars, we go to Las Vegas, the night that changed everything.
Thank you for watching episode 5, When Rap Became War. Hit that like button if you're loving the journey, subscribe for the next chapter, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Were Tupac and Biggie victims of the game or players in a game they couldn't control? Peace until next time.